Oh.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your participant. You are in the meeting now. You are the first participant. Please stand by. This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 16th meeting of the Redistricting Advisory Committee meeting. Welcome to those on Zoom and in the audience. We will have the call to order and roll call.
Thank you, Chairman Sweet.
Here.
Mr. Garibaldi.
Present.
Mr. Jorgensen. Ms. Fisher, Ms. Araka. Present. Mr. Inyart. Vice Chairman Anderson. I do see she's on Zoom. Ms. Thompson. Mr. Byrne.
Here.
Mr. Baracco.
Here.
Ms. Houghton. Mr. Dell.
Here.
Mr. Patton.
Here.
Ms. Heisenbuttel. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. You'd all rise and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, with liberty and
Okay, we have the agenda. I have a motion to approve. Or is there any additions to to tonight's agenda at all? Okay, if not,
so moved.
it's been moved, seconded, and seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the approval of the November 8 minutes. I'm sure you've all read and accept the motion to approve those.
So moved.
It's been moved and
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Public matters not on the agenda. Those of you, anyone on Zoom or in the audience or at the dais
Hi,
wants to speak about something that might be related but isn't necessarily on tonight's agenda, we can't talk about that.
good evening, Katja Anderson, District 3. Just a little technical issue. Nobody on Zoom can like mute, start their video or unmute themselves. I just wanted
Thank
to-
you for the information. We had some changes in our settings today for security purposes, so you can go ahead and remain unmuted. And for those who do wish to comment, we will take those as they come in.
Okay,
Hope that helps.
okay.
Okay. I hear no more, see no one moving up to the microphone, so we'll close the public matters not on the agenda item, moving to the review public hearing. Want to clarify something. So if we're meeting tonight and the board meets in a public hearing next Tuesday morning at 10:30, and obviously they would like to have something delivered to them by the board meeting. So hopefully we can get that taken care of tonight. But if we cannot, which is tonight's Tuesday, are we precluded from this room next Monday? Do you have a schedule?
I'll have to pull that up on my calendar on my phone. So if you have other things to discuss, it'll just take a minute here.
Mr. Chairman, while we have a break in the action, can you tell us what the,
I will, yeah.
what's that column indicate?
I will, yeah.
Oh, good.
You might look at Friday too, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Hopefully we can get something done tonight.
I do believe it's open on the 22nd.
Okay.
Just would feel more comfortable looking at an actual calendar and not on a phone.
Right, okay. Would you put up that sheet that I titled "Heard at the Last Public Hearing"? I gave you two things to bring up.
We have the map options and meeting points.
I can't see it from here, so, oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There we go, that one right there. Okay.
We can't see
I
you
took
on
some
Zoom.
notes during the public hearing, and I went back and re-listened, as maybe some of you also did. And these were some of the points that I wrote down anyway, which we might want to talk about before we move ahead.
Excuse me, sorry. We can't
for-
see on Zoom what you're talking about.
As the,
Thank you.
Thank you. If you're able to turn your volume on a little higher, that would be helpful. Katya?
I think this is the best it's going to get. Is that okay?
Really?
Can you
Or
try
no?
now? I tried turning it up on our end.
Yes. Can you hear me clearly?
Try again?
Can you hear me clearly now?
Oh, yeah.
There you
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, they're pretty clear and straightforward. If any folks have any additional comments, that's not the whole list. You can move that down a little bit. There's still some more at the bottom. One of the last comments was, you know, to try to use natural boundaries instead of local streets and so forth, and I'm sure some folks are doing that. And then the map should be the least disruptive from the present map. I think that was pretty clear, was what the supervisors were interested in. And I just put up in parentheses, a comment made by the county council that if we did, all 5 points were covered that are required to do, that they could, if they so made a finding of that the incumbents could be considered. And then you slide back up again so you can see the rest of them. Those were some of the things that we got out of that, and that in our discussions on maps tonight, you know, we might consider to include.
Keith, I have a comment. I got a call this morning from a person from the Ione Fire Department, and they were asking about Jackson Valley Fire and was wondering if that was going to be affected by the redistricting. And I pretty much told him I didn't know the legalities of it, but I believed that if it was split, 2 supervisors could still supervise, still be a part of that, and Jackson Valley Fire Protection would be its existing area. And that was the best answer I had. I said, without asking legal counsel, I told him I didn't believe that just because the mapping was changing, it shouldn't affect Jackson Valley Fire.
And Patty, Jackson Valley Fire is a special district, just like Lockwood Fire.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it would not have any effect on their own operations at all.
That's what I figured.
But there would be 2 supervisors that they could deal
Possibly,
with rather than 1.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's what I said.
Okay, so these were just some of the points that they made, and hopefully we keep those in mind as we're moving forward. The next slide. So as I was mulling over how to work tonight's meeting to get some clarity, and I went through all of the maps. There's like, I don't know, how many we got? Ruslan, 35 or 40 maps. But it appears, well, first of all, that we have to agree that maybe we don't agree. I don't know. But it seems to me that one of the largest points of discussion that we've had since February or March when we started was Pine Grove has made it very clear, the Pine Grove community, that they would like to be represented by as few supervisors as possible. And we heard clearly at the last public hearing that Comanche would like to be represented by as few supervisors as possible. So these are the possibilities of how to put a map together, or what we could have. We could have 1 supervisor representing Comanche and 1 supervisor representing Pine Grove. That's one goal to shoot for. Or we could have 1 Comanche and 2 in Pine Grove, 1 Comanche, 3 in Pine Grove, 1 Comanche, 4 in Pine Grove, et cetera. Those are the only possibilities that we have facing us, if in fact those are the 2 goals that we'd be looking to meet. The minimum number of supervisors in each of these 2 areas. We could all agree on that, then these are the options. Looking at the maps that people are currently working on or have worked on, or that I could figure out, and Ruslan and I could figure out from what is in the system, it ends up that we've got probably 8 maps that have Comanche as covered with in one district by 1 supervisor. With those same maps then would have 3 supervisors in the Pine Grove area. the Pine Grove COI would be split amongst 3. There's 8 maps that look like that. There are no maps that look with 1 and 1, obviously. There's a question mark there because I think one that Bruce and Stephanie were working on, I didn't have all the COIs available to put into it, so I wasn't sure. But going on down, you see that there's 4 maps that have 2 in Comanche and 2 supervisors in Comanche and 2 supervisors in Pine Grove, which, if I were ranking all of those, I suppose would be the second option that's available to everyone. There'd be maps to shoot for. If we could come to some agreement on that, then I would propose that those are the 4 maps that we start with looking at tonight. And then look at any other map that anybody wants to look at or bring forward after we looked at those 4, just in order to shorten the process and better meet what I think are the overall goals of this committee. Okay, so the piece that I handed out to you, which is a 3rd piece, which is not up on the screen, and I apologize to the Zoom folks. I just put this together before I came here tonight. All I did was just identify the maps and then identify what those maps appear to have in terms of supervisor coverage. And I emboldened the C2, P2, and I added one in X. I think this, I don't know, Andy, did you work with Supervisor X on any of these?
The one that's FAXBA2.
Okay. There was an XC that I didn't count in the one that's up on the screen. So instead of 4, there's actually 5.
Well, the Axe C is actually just one change from Axe B. No, I mean, it was literally showing if you do this, you could, it was basically showing you could put Forrester back in his district by giving up another section of that district.
Okay.
Right. So it was just moving one section to another section. Otherwise, it was the same map.
So all I did in order to get prepared for tonight's meeting was take the maps that I thought were the ones that were being used, worked on, and that's what it's in my handout. And then I just overlaid the COI of Pine Grove and Comanche on each one and identified whether it was it was in 2 districts or 3 districts, or I think 3 was the most. So that's where we are, and that's how I propose to move forward and open for discussion.
We do have a comment via Zoom if you wish to take that now.
I can't hear.
We do have a comment via Zoom if you wish to take that now, or
Oh, yeah, no, we'll take it
Okay.
now, sure.
go ahead, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief observation, and this is based on my understanding of how the last meeting played out. There was a significant and I refer back to your slide about possible ways forward. And my sense is that there was a great deal of discussion about Pine Grove and the number of supervisors associated with Pine Grove or affiliated with Pine Grove. And that occupied a large portion of the meeting. It's my observation that the Comanche discussion was a shorter discussion and came up sort of at later in the meeting. And I guess my only comment would be that your possible way forward suggestions seem to weight the Pine Grove matter and the Comanche matter as of equal concern. And my take from the last meeting was that that is not, in fact, the case. Thank you.
I'd concur on that. I did. I mean, it didn't come up, but Pine Grove comes up a lot because Pine Grove has 4,500 people in it, and Comanche has 2,000 people in it. And I think he's right. It was, and even in fact, Richard Forrester has cut a Comanche in his map, the same way I cut it. So.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what, I agree that Pine Grove has taken more, we've received more input on that and less discussion on Comanche. But those are the two large areas that we have. I mean, if you want to eliminate Comanche, then it's a question of whether you've got two maps or which maps have Pine Grove with the least number of supervisors.
Well, I'd also comment that keeping it to that also doesn't address upcountry. Oh, here we go with the pine things again. The whole area up that's now that's split by the D5, D3 area. That is a mess. And if you want to keep that whole, that means you have to have 3 districts in Pine Grove. And so there's certain areas that you end up. I've seen maps where they want to keep, where like Jeff Brown wants to put all that section into District 3, which makes sense because it really is upcountry. But if you do that, then District 5 has to crawl into District 4 in Pine Grove to make up for that 1,000 people they need to take out of up there. It's the Redux 2010 Redux is the one I worked on, and I wouldn't count it as an accurate map because I gave up. I threw my hands up and left because it was untenable. I was moving numbers around, and it became, I mean, it was like starting over at the very beginning, and it's the same problem over and over and over again, whether you either take 1,000 people out of upcountry and move them around. It's the same problem. So.
Yeah. Well, we have no maps submitted or working on right now where Pine Grove has 1 supervisor.
Right.
We have a number of them that
I
have.
beg to disagree, Mr. Chairman. I think I've done one.
Pardon?
I beg to disagree. I believe I have done one where Pine Grove is whole with 1 supervisor.
Was that a classic?
No, I believe it was my own weird way. I believe it was labeled Don Goodwin.
But that was one of the ones that you put Sutter Creek in with Plymouth, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, and the board said that was not acceptable.
Okay.
Not acceptable.
That was the biggest takeaway, I think, from that meeting, is that they steered us toward the classic.
Right.
Which is, goes to your minimizing the changes wherever possible. So,
Okay.
and I agree with, I'm on board with Keith that Pine Grove with 2 and Comanche with 2 may be about the best we can do, and we're short of time here to get this done. So I think we do have to look at something like the 4 or 5 maps that are there to narrow this down. That's,
well, since the equitable map was taken off the table, yes, I wouldn't disagree with you.
yeah. The supervisors can reject whatever this committee comes out with, or they can tweak that to their satisfaction. But I think we did get direction on what they wanted to see come out of the committee. So I'd like to give them something that's as good as we can get in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and although I did miss the meeting because of some family problems, I did watch it on the video replay, if you will, and I definitely got that message. Which is why I came in on Friday and did the 11:15 map, or I guess that was on Monday, which is very different than any map I had done before.
So, go ahead, Ann. Yeah, no, you're up. Fine.
Ann Heisenbuttel, District 5, alternate member. I also think we need to consider really what are the boundaries of Pine Grove, because our COI expands it well beyond the census designated place, with the numbers you were giving, Andy, you're comparing it to the Comanche census designated place. And some of those boundaries in that upcountry region, I think are worthy of consideration to adjust. I mean, I recognize
where
a
we've
lot
got.
of us think we live in Pine Grove. We say we know we live in Pine Grove, but we may be on that fringe where it just trying to balance out the population numbers, it may not make sense to keep them in that district.
Well, with this configuration, it's impossible to keep them in that configuration. So it's a moot point.
That does
so
affect whether you have 2 supervisors or 3 within that Pine Grove community of interest.
That community was created over 20 years of people coming to public meetings in Pine Grove and telling us they live in Pine Grove. There is no number, there's no magic. Pine Grove is actually populated differently than a lot of the other parts of the county. Upcountry is populated in a similar way. It's more of just a sprawl of rural residents. You go down to Jackson, it's not. The people really live in the city or just around the city. Sutter Creek, all the people in that area live in the city. There are almost nobody around it. I mean, there's like a couple hundred people maybe outside of the city limits. And so Pine Grove has that ballooning effect because it has neighborhoods that were created with a lack of planning.
I don't disagree.
So that it's a different layout. You do have a sprawl in Pine Grove. So whether we call it Pine Grove or not, people think they live in Pine Grove there. So we are going to cut them out of Pine Grove on this mapping exercise because of that.
Right, but it still comes into, it still affects how we look at it, whether it should be 2 supervisors or it's 3.
I agree.
I don't want to completely discount all the maps that might have some of the residents in the upcountry district.
I think the cleanest place where you can draw that distinction is where you start to talk about the distinction between District 4 and District 1 in the Clinton area. And that's an overlap area we have now, but I've honestly never considered it that much of an overlap area. You don't have that many. I've had 1 or 2 people over the years say they were in Pine Grove. Most everybody else doesn't show up in that area, and that really could be considered part of Jackson. But honestly, that doesn't help our maps.
But the same thing happens in that area between Pine Grove and Volcano. Do you live in Pine Grove or do you associate more with Volcano?
That's right.
So it works on both ends of the district.
Yeah, well.
And I should point out that the map that Ann and Tom and myself worked on, I actually left off this quick review sheet. It should be, if you want to write it on, it's AKK map, and it's actually C1P3. Pardon? Oh, and Katja worked with us on, right, Katja worked with us on this last go around. Okay, so do I hear that we can move ahead with you looking at the 4 or 5 maps that are C2P2 to begin with?
Good with that.
Everybody's resigned to that fact?
I'm down for that one.
Okay, let's do that. Let's.
Before you bring that up, out of those 5, do you or do Ruslan know which ones of those keep Amador City and Sutter Creek together? Because that might be a way to refine that further if they're not all together. Because I think that was kind of a direction both from Sutter Creek.
I do find it interesting that it is now a fact that Amador City and Sutter Creek have to stay together, but Pine Grove is okay to cut up.
Well, Pine Grove is currently cut up, and again,
so it doesn't matter.
Well, I think we're looking to improve the situation. How many are they represented by now?
I would say 3.
4.
You can say 4, but honestly, the District 1 cut is minimal as far as I'm.
So at least we're moving from 3. I would agree with you. From 3
if we could get it to 2, I would believe that. I tried to do some maps with just 2, and it is very difficult without causing extreme difficulties in other places on the map.
Yep.
I've got another question. Where are we defining where Pine Grove is split? I mean, what boundary are we using to define how many supervisors are splitting it.
The COI boundary that we all agreed on is,
Yeah,
as
that's,
I know.
I mean, we did spend
Okay.
months creating those boundaries.
Okay, well, I
Okay.
just wanted to
I
make
mean,
sure
if you can
because,
change those if you want, that's an option.
And I didn't get to the second sentence on my possible way forward.
Sorry.
But, that sentence, is obviously very important, because once we look at the map, the C2, P2 maps, then we have to see, as Andy just alluded to, how each of those maps are affected in other areas. And they may not be usable to us then either, so.
Yeah, honestly, I was looking at that very carefully when I was doing maps and to try to come up with I wasn't just trying to make Pine Grove work, honestly. I was trying to make the whole map work. I do have a strong affiliation with Pine Grove because that's why I'm here. But I have been trying to make the whole map work, and it becomes extremely difficult with this limitations on it.
Right.
And
I agree.
I'd like to
I
point
think everybody
out-
here agrees to that, and I think the supervisors who were working on the maps themselves, manipulating the numbers, found that was the case.
Yeah, the limitations imposed on this is the traditional power structure of the 49 corridor, where Jackson, Sutter Creek, Plymouth, and Ione each have a supervisor, and the rest of the county is left with whatever they can get.
Yeah.
Having said that, Ruslan, will you bring up, map, let's start with Don's, Don 1115. And for those watching on Zoom and those in the audience, we have to know that probably none of these maps are in their final form. And these are maps that have been worked on, and then people ran out of time or whatever, but they meet the general criteria, so and we have to do something to move ahead. And it has to be a map that's in the classic form as recommended or requested by the supervisors, which has Sutter Creek and Amador City together in District 4.
There's Dawn, November 15th.
It just shows the problem that District 5 doesn't have enough people in it when you don't put Sutter Creek with
Right.
it. Sorry, I can't
I
help
think
myself.
this one also doesn't, I think this one also does not fit the deviation standard.
Oh, no, if Dawn drew it, it does.
Okay, so I think I was right.
Range? So what was the range?
I think it's at like 11.5% or so right now.
Let me generate the report.
Yeah, in District 5, yeah. Because that's another,
Yeah.
we have lots of people.
So it doesn't meet you gotta be down there 10 or less, down there.
Oh.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Okay,
I got some work to do tomorrow then.
all right. So it doesn't meet the 5 requirements, so let's back out of that one.
Yeah, well, it also fits the same mapping picture that was in the third one, the third type of map we had at the meeting, where District 5 is a ballooned district, and nobody liked that either, which again is has to find population for District 5 somewhere.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the one that just called Don. Now, again, this is me looking, and Ruslan looking through this list of 40-some maps here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a map or know of one that's not on this list, bring it up.
Keith, that's what I was, asking Ruslan just now. I have a map but I think what happened is it may have been written over, because it differs from my map that I did with Rich, or with Rich in the room. And because Ione had dropped, about by another 100 by my new map, but.
We'll bring it up.
Yeah.
I had that happen
we couldn't
several
find
times
it.
where somebody took my map, they must have looked at it, and they put it back differently than I left it.
Yeah,
So,
no,
and that did happen at least twice on my maps.
yeah.
I had to go back
don't-
and rejigger them.
I don't think you found this one here, right, Rosen, at 76? And I know this one passed. I just, it's unfortunate, I don't
What's it
think it's
called?
out there. That's what we said, we couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. We think it got overwritten by another one that Rich and I had worked on. And then Bob had come in and looked at, with me, and we're just not sure.
The
It's
map's in there
unfortunate.
called Bob. Would it be called Bob?
No, we just looked.
All right.
It's over there.
Well, let's come back to that.
You can't find a plan that's just named Dawn. That,
It doesn't sound like Don, no.
There wasn't a plan called Don,
just, nothing's just Dawn. Dawn usually, what's,
either in my plans or in recent plans.
that's all the same.
Same one.
Called a bunch of the older stuff.
Well, we're narrowing it down here. Let's go to Act C. Right? Andy, which one you want to go to first?
Well, I mean, Act C, I think, is a variation of, FAX, well, Act B1.
So this is.
I'm not
Act
sure.
Is
C.
it Axie or Axie?
Facts.
Axie.
His goal here was to split Pine Grove into two districts between, District 3 and District 4. But you can see what it causes problems upcountry and between the District 5 and District 3, zone. And I'm not sure that it's not that easy to get a real clean line through there. It actually worked. I cleaned it up a little bit. The FAX BA2 might be the same map, but after I did some COI cleanup.
So you want to go to that one?
You could maybe overlay it.
We do have another comment via Zoom.
Jump in here.
Please go ahead when ready, Mr. Peters.
Yes, thank you. Just a clarification question. I'm looking at the agenda and under item 6, we looked at the comment list, and I thought the idea was to look at maps submitted by the Board of Supervisors first before looking at maps created by the committee. I'm just wondering, as a point of clarification, what the process is here. Were we to look at the supervisors' maps before looking at additional maps created by the committee?
Mr. Peters, I'm not sure I understood of any direction of looking at whose maps first. I just lumped all the maps that we had available to us and scored them on the number of supervisors that were in the Comanche and Pine Grove area. The additional maps submitted by the supervisors, let's see, Mr. Supervisor Oneto submitted 5 or worked on 6 actually, and we have those listed to look at. All of his were Comanche 1, Pine Grove 3, and they were all in the classic format. And Forrester had 1 submitted, Axe had 3 submitted, Jeff had 1 submitted, and they're all on the list. And when they were ranked with respect to Comanche and Pine Grove, all of those, many of those had Pine Grove broken up into 3. So I took it upon myself to say that we would start by looking at those that had Pine Grove into 2 and first, and I think the committee's decided to do that. Does that help?
I'm not sure. I'm just looking at the agenda and following the Board of Supervisors meeting in the direction given by the board. I thought that the order of things here tonight would be to look at those additional maps submitted by the board under item 6, and then go on from there, assuming that additional direction might be given by those maps prepared by the board, and then go on to look at revised maps prepared by the committee. I don't mean to drive the bus here. I'm just following the agenda and wondering what the order of things is going to be tonight. Thank you.
Hi, Mr.
Well,
Peters.
we're actually looking at a map submitted by a supervisor at the moment.
Yeah, I actually, it's not a bad idea, I think, to go look at the supervisor maps first before we go over them, because that does show the direction that they were trying to give us, right?
I second that.
But so this is a compilation of 2 maps, and I've worked on them a little bit, mainly just cleaning up a couple lines where COIs were crushed. And you can see they're not that significantly different, and that would just be playing around the edges for this map. Like I said, his goal was to split Pine Grove into with only 2 districts, and that being Upcountry and then District 4. So
I'm happy to do that if that's, since I wrote the agenda and I'm now being held to it. That's not what I had in mind when I wrote the agenda, but be that as it may, we're on one of Axe's maps. This one is BA2.
This one is fact C, and it's being compared with BA2.
Okay.
So the hashed areas are differences.
And I looked closely at Frank's maps, and they are pretty much, you could overlay them all, and it's just playing with a few census blocks here and there. Like you said, any of these maps could be changed to this degree without having a significant change. But the core of the idea is clear on this.
Let's just run through them just so everybody has a sense of what the supervisor's maps that they submitted. I suspect that if we want to take the time to put them through the probably none of them meet the criteria of being totally balanced.
Well, they weren't, I'm pretty sure they weren't looking at our list of COIs and how they are impacted the COIs,
Right.
which was one of the main criteria that we were tasked to work with.
That hasn't changed.
In fact, one of the, I think, Richard Forrester's map only had a handful of the COIs in it, and I'm not sure why the other ones were missing, but yeah, and Frank started with that, and I had Ruslan come back and add all the rest of the COIs so we could judge it appropriately.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that needs to be emphasized. Those committee members were on their maps worked pretty hard to get all the COIs covered, and the Board of Supervisors were working just with some of the numbers. Okay, what's the next one you're bringing up?
So there's a few that are labeled supervisor, but I just took out a few of the ones that Brian made and left the final one. And there might be a few in here that are old and not. But let's just start with Richard and Patty.
Yeah, see, there aren't, most of the COIs aren't on there.
I'll put them in right now. The merged. Oh, that's the merged one. So shall I go through the COIs? Under Pines is okay. These are the communities that are split. Under Pines, Under Pines 2, I should say. Comanche, oh, that's, I believe that's a creek. Comanche is split. Grinding Rock by Pine Grove Volcano Road. Mount Zion. The black is the border for Mount Zion. Acres. Pine Grove. Valley Road has that big portion there. Middle Ridge has a few areas down here. Sherwood Forest, I think that's this bit that's split down here.
Well, I have a question on this one.
What heartaches do you have?
Well, I would like, to know the affinity and cultural connection between Carbondale Road, Fiddletown, and Amador Pines. Yeah, exactly. What is it?
It's no different than your connection of Kirkwood to Plymouth on one of those early maps.
Yes, but that was sarcastic.
I just received a note from the county executive office. They would like to have some maps ready by tomorrow to be submitted in the packet for next Tuesday.
Sure.
Maybe you could find that other one of mine then.
So is this one the committee thinks we ought to include in that packet?
I think the inclusion of the San Joaquin County line with Amador Pines is unacceptable.
I think personally, as somebody who lives in Amador Pines, I wouldn't be very keen to this. I think a lot of the Amador Pines residents would prefer to be more aligned with upcountry values, like in District 3, rather than more rural interests like District 5 has. And I could see that being an issue with many residents there.
I gave a presentation last Saturday, another one, and I heard that about that whole area, the Amador Pines area, as being people up there really do identify with upcountry, not with Plymouth.
For that reason, I think if this map were altered in a way that changed that in some way,
All the
I don't
alternations.
think it's the worst map.
Gotcha. All the alterations, because to take out that section that's upcountry, that's probably close to 1,000 people. And all to do that, you either take more out of Pine Grove or you take more out of District 2. It's the same, you start seeing some of the other maps that we've already shown.
I understand that. I don't know. I think that I was actually fairly happy with the map that Ann, Keith, and I worked on. I thought that one turned out really well. And in the end, District 3 had less people in it than I think 3 of the other districts. It did, however, I think capture the interests of, I think, almost every community of interest. And there was a couple we narrowed down that we were okay with dividing them. We had spoken with people from those communities of interest, or we're working with them to better understand what they wanted and the map making that went into it. And I think that that was an important decision that we made that not only, I think, would appease many of the supervisors, but many of the people as well. And then I think we could fine tune it from there about how many districts are elapsing over Pine Grove or something like that. I mean, I guess Keith said that we had 3 supervisors in Pine Grove. I wanted to believe it was 2. It must just be barely 3. So I think like that's workable and we can get the numbers better, narrow down the range of people that we have. I think we're around like 9% deviation. So I think we could work to get the numbers better and, stuff like that. So I think that it's possible. I think we just have to kind of dig in a little more, and a lot of, I know that several of us have shown the dedication that it takes. I think it's just a matter of, focusing on, that.
Heather, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Of course.
What's the deadline for tomorrow? I mean, do they have to be turned in tonight, or is it noon tomorrow, or
Thank you for
end
asking.
of day?
It would be preferred for tonight so that there's time tomorrow to review it before we get our agenda packet out Thursday in the morning. So, thank you.
This was,
Was Richard and Patty, and I just did that for that demonstration. I added that section of Amador Pines into District 3, and there's a lot of people in that little horn. Depending on which blocks you select, you can get between 500 to about 1,100. Yeah.
Estimate of 1,000 was pretty close. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
let's move on.
Yeah, and now try the Lockwood COI on that.
Let's, Mr. Supervisor Oneto's here. Do you have one of your numbers you'd like us to look at?
It was,
Pardon?
it's Brian Final.
Brian Final? That today?
So I'll start with the COIs. Product 2 is split, but I think from the last meetings,
I think that one, I think we could call not a split. I mean, we've gone through it a bunch. It overlaps with a couple other COIs right there, but that's not a crazy one.
that was Grinding Rock.
They write down grinding. We have a Grinding Rock person coming to the microphone.
That's split by Pine Grove Volcano Road, and I was the one who proposed that COI, and I think it's okay to cut it off at Pine Grove Volcano Road and just keep it to the west.
I'll click that.
Jackson Pines COI. Split by Clinton Road. Lockwood COI. I think this might be one of those technicalities. For Lupe Road. Since the access is.
What?
Don, can you please speak into your microphone?
That on that particular one, the what you see not covered in that district is, bleeding over from the previous census blocks that we used when we drew the COIs. But the amount of, COI that's cut off from there is very minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those ones though, but the only way to get there is from Ridge Road.
Grove. A little bit here. I think that overlaps with Jackson Pines. And then a little bit here and here. So this is the Gala Manor Homestead area. And then this is the Grinding Rock area. And then I think this was the Lupe Road area. I'll leave it, oh, okay. I'll leave Pine Grove unchecked right now, just for the clutter. So Ridge. Lower Ridge is fine, Middle Ridge a little bit. Upper Ridge. Running Gold, I'm not sure. The subdivision area is here.
Yeah, the part that's, out is only 11 people.
Yeah, but it's also on the same side of, Ridge Road.
I think that 11 pushes it over.
Really?
Well,
11 goes all the way up, though.
let's find out.
No, the 11 I don't think does go up. It runs on Ridge Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's
you had it down to
close.
with 11 people. That's using your margins.
Yeah, really.
We can, but
The
so
eastern boundary?
the question was,
Oh, yeah.
can we compare this map to the current boundaries? And we can. Or
Let's finish up these COIs and
Yeah.
look at them.
Yeah, finish up the COI.
yeah, I'll finish up real quick.
This actually looks really good, though.
And,
Better than a lot of them.
but Surrey Junction's fine. Obviously, the Oaks is fine. Oh. Volcano is one of those also that it spills over here and here, but if you look at the aerial and the how it all works, the access is right here somewhere.
That's another spot I'd like to see compared to today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just finish up then. Volcano, Warner Road. I think technically, again, one of those.
Yeah.
So, quick recap. Jackson Pines, Little Long, I think is Clinton Road. Write these down.
It does manage to put all the COI cuts basically in Pine Grove.
Pine Grove,
So
Ridge,
the rest of the county is good to go.
Middle and Upper, and Running Gold, and Volcano and Warner Road. Okay. I just like to keep them off for the clutter. And if we compare it to today's districts, we have the 2020 on 2010 map. Hatched areas are the differences.
Can you zoom in on the volcano area?
So this area, currently, 2010 district boundaries is in District 5, proposed District 3.
That's an area I've heard complaints of, that that split was problematic for people in Volcano. And it doesn't change dramatically from today's. Oh.
Sure.
No, I know, I know. I'm just saying, I'm just telling you what I've heard in public meetings. And I'm not, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I've just been told that. And that's why I have been trying to be careful in that area, because I've had complaints over the last 10, 20 years, being that we've been aware of this for that long. There was another area that somebody wanted to see. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, so, want to do that?
Oh,
What do we?
That's the, city limit of Sutter Creek.
There we are.
the other thing, just visually, that I have an issue with is it's really pinched on the way connecting Sutter Creek up to Pine Grove. And I overheard a conversation with staff and county council that you start to get those kind of pinches, and it really doesn't pass the sniff test.
Well, yeah, anything that's going to follow the classic mode is going to fail for compactness.
Yeah. I did some research on compactness, and boy, it's all over the map. There's a lot of ways of doing it, and it's a really hard one to nail down. It's interesting though when you start doing it, and it passes a compactness test that this program says, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it, and we've never played at all with those.
What's the committee's pleasure? Do we add this to the list for submission for next Tuesday?
I would say yes for me.
I would say yes also, though I think that Pine Grove being split up among 4 different districts is an issue.
Yeah, I think it is interesting that all communities of interest are honored except everything in Pine Grove. I mean, honestly, it's literally all the splits in the COIs are in Pine Grove, the Pine Grove, greater Pine Grove area.
And we still ended up with only 3 instead of 4?
No, there's 4.
There's 4.
There's
I mean,
still 4?
as much as there's 4 today.
As much as there is today.
Oh.
It's actually the same.
How did we do as far as displacing supervisor home sites? Did we bump anybody in with this?
No, this
map?
one gets them all, and you can see the finger coming in up from District 2, which grabs Richard. An earlier map had Frank done out because Surrey Junction was dropped into 5, but this, he put it back in on this one. So I'm pretty sure all the supervisors are accounted for in this map.
Okay. I would vote that we include this map.
Seconded.
Since you brought that question up, why don't you do that overlay on there?
Oh, I don't think I have it on this map.
While we're waiting, we do have a comment via Zoom if you wish to take that.
Yeah, who is it?
It's Mr. Peters. Please go ahead.
I don't want to take anything from him, Mr. Peters.
Has-
Go
has
ahead,
it-
Robin.
Has it come to that, Chairman? I simply wanted to take exception to a comment from one of the committee members that any of the classic maps runs afoul of the compactness rule, if you will. And I think it's already been demonstrated not to be the case. There are a number of classic maps and variations on the classic map that meet the compactness rule, so that is not accurate. Thank you.
There's 3 in each district. They're all fine.
I don't think your mic's on.
The dots on the map, the red ones represent where the current supervisorial incumbent is. The green, I believe, is the water agency.
No,
Cool.
school board.
Nope. Or is that the blue?
Blue is water.
Blue is the water agency, and the green was the school district. So there should be one of each color in each of the districts if they were not to be impacted. And a little hard to see there, but I think there's 3 in each one.
There is.
Have to zoom in a little bit, I guess.
Yeah,
There's a dot down at the bottom of Comanche, dot in Ione, and then a dot up to the right there, that red dot. Yeah. The one in the brown in District 2. Then District 1, you've got, they're all up there. Everybody lives in Jackson. Those 3 there. So, good job, Mr. Oneto.
Yes, good job. I would like to propose to the committee, if we don't have any more supervisors' maps to look over, or if we have time at the end, if we could kind of try to tear this one apart a little bit around Pine Grove and see if we can mend it just a little bit to help make it better for the what people are wanting for maps for tomorrow. Would that sound like a good idea to anybody, everybody?
Any of these to improve.
Oh,
not a lot of room to.
let's get to where we can get the similarities, go through first, please, Katya, and then we can come back and tweak them. We still have time to tweak them between the time we submit them and they talk about them next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is the 23rd. We can have another meeting after that, and then they still have the 7th and the 15th to talk about them. So,
Okay.
Let's go to Jeff's map.
I don't think that one was finished.
Pardon?
I don't believe it was finished fully.
Okay, well, let's not go to it then.
I can check real quick.
I should say Supervisor Brown.
So there's an area here that's kind of weird. Oh, yeah, there's some small slivers in areas probably. Yeah. Want me to move on or?
I think that map needs a little work. If we start going through the, COIs, I think it's,
I think the point he was making is that he wanted the rest of the upcountry to be part of upcountry. That's the only thing I've heard from him, in passings. The main thing. And you can see the difference. That's where when you give the upcountry, again, up to District 3, from District 5, you encroach more into District, the Pine Grove area. Same thing over and over again.
okay, we'll back off that one. So Supervisor Axe, we've looked at that one. Supervisor Forrester, we looked at that one. Supervisor Onetto, we just did his. Supervisor Brown, still for work, so, at this point, I'll ask the question, of the maps that we've looked at thus far, is anybody willing to, or does the committee want to select any or all of those till we get further work?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
you identified one, Mr. Chairman. That was one of mine. I would be really grateful if you could figure out which one that was.
I was just sitting there going down the list. I'm sure I saw Don by itself, but.
No, that's only me in real life, actually.
What about the one we had, did that get modified, the Ann, Tom, Keith one?
So,
Did that one get modified?
which one?
The Ann, Tom, Keith one that we had?
Well, we're
before?
gonna bring that up. I mean,
Okay.
we have a request to get that in. Bruce, do you have a couple on here, I think.
Our most current is, SBK Classic.
Okay. Bring that one up. I mean, the committee's willing to review any and all. So I just I made this list up just to get us focused on.
And Ruslan, if you would hold off on the communities of interest, most of them are covered. There's some of those standard splits, but I'll give you the overview to start with. Katya, be sure to chime in.
1 second. I think there's a little bit of a glitch. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
There we go. I was trying to figure that one out.
This is supposed to be Comanche, 1 supervisor, and Pine Grove, 2 supervisors. So the initial concept is to include Pine Acres, the Pine Acres Community Services District in District 3, if you want to zoom in on that area. So the area east of Tebow Road would go to District 3 upcountry, and the orangish area is Pine Acres Community Services District. East of Tebow Road, there's also a portion west, but those census tracts go all the way to downtown Pine Grove. And then the demarcation between, and then on the north, it goes all the way up to the creek, to Sutter Creek. Includes all of Grinding Rock, all of Warner Road, all of Loopy Road, all of that area. So we think this is pretty well encompasses all of Pine Grove except for Pine Acres East.
This is similar to the map I worked on with Frank too.
Okay.
That split area there.
Right. Then the demarcation with District 1, it brings the Pioneer Road, Pioneer Drive area into District 1, right where the rectangle is with the District 4 on it. That's currently in District 1. Also includes an area on the south side of Ridge Road, Ridgeview. Does not, as from before, does not include Running Gold. That's put into District 1. And includes outskirts of Sutter Creek, north of the creek, city limits of Sutter Creek, the peninsula between Sutter Creek and Amador City. And District 2, if you'll go down there, it includes all of the Comanche Village and Comanche North Shore area that are populated. There's a little area in District 1 that's not densely populated.
If you don't mind, I've calculated that's 200 people out of the 2,000 people in Comanche. That split there, it's also the same one that Richard Forrester used in his map.
Okay. So it includes Comanche Village, Comanche North Shore, the city of Ione, with a little shout out to Waterman Road, if you can see that on there. And then the area north to Highway 124. District 5, it doesn't extend all the way to the McCollum River as the previous proposal. That's been replaced by District 1 west of Jackson, includes Lake Amador and Lake Pardee, but does include, District 5 still includes Buena Vista and the Oaks Mobile Home Park, includes, then going north, includes all of those same areas from previously, including Willow Springs, Dry Town, Plymouth, and on up. Over on the right, on the east side, District 5 does include Lockwood, but does stops at Amador Pines. That's that nose that comes out to the left. So, Ruslan, if you'd bring up Pine Grove, let's see what how that shakes out. So we think we have Pine Grove covered for 2 supervisors.
They're a little bit into District 1, but it's a place where it's currently in District 1. A little overlap down at the bottom too.
Mm-hmm. And that break line is kind of the Clinton Road, Jackson Pines, which we kept Jackson Pines in District 1. Okay, so that's kind of a walk around SBK Classic. And the numbers are pretty tight if you want to run the that's tight. Okay, so probably the major issues, and Katya, you want to chime in here, you know, the major, as a District 3 representative, and the big issue is, what do you do with Pine Acres?
Right. We were definitely kind of discussing how much we wanted to go down with District 3, and kind of debating how much of taboo we would want to encompass with District 3 and whether or not their values align with Pine Acres. So that was something we were kind of trying to work around. But if we want to go through the COIs, I think we'll find that there's only a few that we were kind of delegating would be acceptable to be cut, and then I think Pine Acres was one of the only ones we had an issue with.
Current population of Pine Acres is about 565. Pine Acres.
Pine Acres, how are you defining that?
The
The COI is more like 1,300.
Community Services District.
It's Community Service District, okay. The COI we mapped is closer to 1,300.
Yes, that includes some area on actually, our mapping, for that was on the east side of Tebow Road only.
Oh, okay.
So that's the, South Clinton, all of the Rodman development out there on the east side.
Is your division line, through there, basically down Tebow Road?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think there's another issue with the upcountry area also. I think anything, west of Charleston Road would probably consider themselves upcountry rather than affiliated with, Plymouth. Yeah. For instance, Mellow Drive, right in that area there, right around Daffodil Hill. I think people in that area consider themselves to be upcountry. I know everybody's got a different definition of upcountry, but there's very little similarities between the ag land down by the 16 corridor and than there is with the more western reaches of the county.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct, but if you look at the population densities, this is better than some of the other options of splitting the upcountry. It has, it's one of those ones, right? It's like, which ox are you goring? But no, absolutely.
Well, and at
That line in there is always-
1%, they've got some wiggle room.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, there's definitely room to move some stuff around.
Ruslan, could you overlay the current supervisorial districts?
Well,
So you added a little bit, there it is.
I think we'd probably call that a corridor.
Yeah, so you moved it down a little bit. And that's one of those places where you show, if you impinge up there, you can give Pine Grove a little more slack. And literally, when we grabbed all that, Pine Grove was in 3 different districts, or 4. So those are the same numbers we keep seeing moving both directions.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a little pause because the Oaks in Buena Vista are now in District 5, correct? And I'm just thinking from the people I know out in that area and Comanche and whatever that, they probably see themselves either in District 2 or District 1. That's a bit of a stretch to say they're in the same, I mean, I understand we got to move the lines to make the population, but I think there's going to be some people that are confused.
Okay, yeah. Buena Vista is 544 people, so that's becomes a real fly in the ointment.
Right. Yeah, well, it's 544 people, and they're all kept in one district. Right?
Yeah, it's
so
just
when you get to the down country, it matters that they're in the correct district. As you go up country, it matters, and we're just trying to get them not cut up.
I understand that.
So the rules are different in different parts of the county, how important it is to be in a particular district.
I'm not trying to make it that, the folks what I'm trying to look at is the shock factor
in terms of that. The folks I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not saying it doesn't need to change, but the folks in Pine Grove are a little more used to a confusing situation.
Oh, that, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. That's
You know,
like
where the
saying they've
people
been
in
screwed
the
for
Oaks
so
are
long,
kinda
it's
going, "This
fine to
makes no
keep
sense."
screwing them. I
Yeah,
just
that's
don't
like
buy it.
people in Mule Creek are used to being in prison.
Right. So, yeah, if that's the argument we're gonna use, that's gonna hold the day, then I should just go home.
Mike,
Microphone.
Keith, Mike.
I mean, the Oaks are contained within a census block.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not a street you can break the Oaks up on.
No,
They're gonna be contained. Buena Vista's a little bit different.
but these maps are keeping them together.
And I agree, that's a good thing.
Right. Because I've been at meetings in Pine Grove where the board of the Pine Grove Civic Improvement Club was in 3 different districts, right? And that, to me, is much more egregious than somebody not landing in the district that they wanted to. I mean, look, we also are pulling, the Amador City, and it was in District 2, and we're moving it to a different district because that's what they wanted. But we're not doing it because they were in District 2. We're doing it because they asked. So some requests hold more sway than other requests.
And I am totally supportive of including this map with the supervisors. I'm just saying that's,
No,
I'm
you're
just
not
drawing
wrong.
attention that's gonna feel a little strange to those folks in the Oaks.
And it will be thrown out by the board because of that.
Maybe, maybe not. They're gonna have, it's gonna be awkward for some folks no matter what they choose. So there's not a perfect solution.
We've been saying that from the very, very beginning, absolutely.
Right, and the solution to that seems to be to make the ones who are in an awkward position stay in an awkward position.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that we can improve it, we can make it less awkward.
I haven't seen the map yet.
Oh, I made one.
No, I've seen maps. No, we both, Don, we have both made maps like that.
And equating the move of Amador City in with Sutter Creek, a 100 population in with, is somewhat a stretch over the concern about Pine Grove some communities being split.
My point being,
4,000 being split up into
yeah,
a block.
my
Keith,
point
it's
being
more of a
that-
matter of, will to do it, and,
I tried to get you down to 2 supervisors, but you didn't want to let me do that, so here we are.
No,
We want to keep this map in.
I think this gets it down to 2 supervisors, and I think that this is a better map than some I've seen. But I decided not to draw one because I decided I'm not going to be the one taking the meat axe or the scalpel to Pine Grove. I'm just not going to be that guy.
But you haven't presented a map with Pine Grove being in one district.
I did.
Well,
The board threw it out last week.
right, okay, yeah, I got that. But
And it was
you
it
haven't
was
been able
thrown
to
out,
revise, you haven't been
and I
able to
will make.
revise it tonight.
I will. No, I'm not asking for it. I'm just saying I'm not going to wield the scalpel. I'm saying it was thrown out for political reasons, not numerical reasons, not for data-driven reasons. And in full disclosure, I knew they were going to throw it out for those reasons.
Okay. Bring up, AKK, please. Ann, you want to run through this one? You might want to run the numbers on this
Katya,
one.
you can
This one
join in.
first. When you get it up.
So this one was, we started with the Ann Keith Tom map
Okay.
and made adjustments to that. And we were, again, trying to get District 4, or Pine Grove down to 2 supervisors, but we still ended up with some spillover in District 3. Starting with Pine Grove, excuse me. The north boundary follows Ridge Road up to a point and then goes up to the ridge so that Mitchell Mine and Crestview, those areas are in District 4, and on the other side of the hill, it goes into District 5. And we split what we call the Grinding Rock Community of Interest along the Pine Grove Volcano Road. So west of Pine Grove Volcano Road is in District 5, and east of the road is in District 3. Katja, do you want to describe what we did up in the northern part?
Sure. Can we turn on the Pine Grove COI map, please? I think that's probably like one of the more important things we've been discussing lately. Okay, so in order to help get this upcountry, we took it in a little bit from District 5 up on the northern part of the map in order to help give some better numbers to work with. So this allowed us to have more space to work with for District 4. I think if we take it in a little more, maybe we'll be able to get District 3 out of overlapping with the Pine Grove COI. But I think overall, I'm fairly happy with how District 3 turned out at the top there. There isn't like a finger going up into the upcountry anymore. And I think that the community's interests are aligned with this map. We're a little bit lower than a couple others, but we're not splitting up Amador Pines. Lockwood is fairly large, and I think we might have cut into that one a bit. But let me see here.
Everybody cuts into Lockwood.
Yeah. That's a common problem.
You want to? I think overall, I mean, we split into Gala Manor, but we split that one down the middle. We put Gala Manor into District 4, and then we put Homestead into District 3, and that was where one of the lines we drew was. And we decided that that was something we were okay with doing, since Homestead actually has their, they actually go to vote in like technically Pioneer. I know I actually did the, I helped do a, what is it called? I was a ballot helper, whatever it's called. And so I think their interests could align with Pioneer, and that's something that wouldn't be the biggest deal breaker, having Homestead and Gala Manor split in a way along District 3 and 4. So although we could argue that that section is cutting into Pine Grove, like the Pine Grove COI, I think it's actually going to be okay. I know Anne was kind of talking about how Grinding Rock was okay as well. We also cut into, let me see here, Volcano. And that was something that was kind of iffy, I would say. I think this
Volcano ends up in District 3.
In its entirety. I wrote that one down, I think.
We're close. I don't remember if we had a
I think
little
you got
bit
the
of spillover.
Masonic Temple in District 5. The big COI, right there at that corner. Oh, you missed it.
Let's zoom out so we can see the rest of the map.
Okay. Then moving on then. So Ridge Road looked good for continuity. We were able to run through lower, middle, and upper. It was tight, but I think it would still pass the test for having it compact.
It looks like you drop off, you're using Ridge Road for a while, and then you stop using Ridge Road and you add that block right there that says 46 on it.
We had to do that to keep the numbers working.
Right. Yeah, that makes less sense to me. If you're going to use Ridge Road, you shouldn't deviate from it at that point. It makes people on that road not know what district they live in.
We tried that both ways.
Yeah, that was definitely
Oh, you're
something
still your way of 9.5.
Yeah, we were on the margin there.
but-
We have Sutter Creek and Amador City together
Mhm.
in District 4. And then let's zoom out. You can
We also
see,
split Martell.
That's right.
But I mean, I think we talked about how Martell was talking about getting split anyways, and that it's been a debate of discussion between Sutter Creek and Jackson for a while. And since their population is in the double digits anyways, I think in the big scheme of things, deciding whether they're in Jackson or Sutter Creek wouldn't make a huge difference.
Then can we look at Comanche? We have Comanche all in District 2. And so we're close to that 10% deviation, but we were able to stay below 10%. And I think we had all the electeds but one falling within each of the districts. Yeah, we tried to adjust that. The numbers just wouldn't work. That's AKK.
Does anyone have any questions regarding that? I think we went over the COIs that were an issue. Oh, actually one I think got left out. I think we put running gold between two districts. Oh, no, okay, that one's good too.
Going back to a question that Don asked earlier, it's like, what's the cultural connection between District 5 and District 4? That it's like, what I get the combination of Upcountry and Pine Grove. I don't really get the connection to Plymouth and Pine Grove. I mean, and the using a road that runs right down the middle of a community as a division line is kind of harsh, which is what Ridge Road does. That's why in a lot of other maps, if you use Sutter Creek, it's kind of like out in the hinterland, and I understand why it's happening that way, but I'm just saying that's one of my complaints about this particular map.
We tried several different ways to push the boundary from District 4 up to the top of the ridge, north of Ridge Road, and the numbers just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So we were able to do that at the eastern end of Ridge Road into Pine Grove, but we just couldn't add in all those other numbers, the population.
And I think
what I would argue is that as you go over that ridge, before, like up, what is it, Moonlight Ridge, I think, you get into more rural areas. You've got BLM, you've got the state park, you've got ranch lands, and there's an association with that upper part of District 5 in terms of way of life.
Yeah, but like Surrey Junction, Loopy Road, all of those are more aligned with.
Right, we really tried to
Yeah.
keep those.
No, I know, and that's,
before.
and I brought it up because that's just where there's
Yeah.
a few thousand people and you have to split it up to make this
Yeah,
map style work.
That's
I'll
what
make the
happened.
same comment, the COIs that are all impacted are all in Pine Grove.
well, Pine Grove is the biggest blotch on the map.
Can you get that in the record, please?
Pine Grove is
Sorry, am I being
also
too subtle, Keith?
population center.
Okay, we're moving along here. Are we gonna include this one in the packet? Or,
I think it's a worthy contender. Does anyone else agree?
I wouldn't. But I'm not sure if you caught my opinion on these or not tonight.
This is Tom. I would put it in the packet. How many do we have in the packet? Even though I wasn't involved in this final.
well, right now I've got, one from Mr. Rex, one from Mr. Forrester, one from, Mr. Oneto, one from, Mr. Baracco, and, one from, AKK.
Was your, secret note, of what they'd like to see, didn't it say 5?
No.
It didn't specify a number.
That we could send one, we could send 10.
Okay.
They
Send them
they
all.
put 15 in them last time on their own.
A wild selection of 15 too.
But seriously, I mean, we need to put forth workable, usable maps that meet the criteria we were then given back to come and look at. And knowing that none of these 5 are in their final form, probably.
Right, that's true.
And I think if we put these forward, the makers of them should, or the makers, authors, should also submit to Heather, hopefully by tomorrow, a somewhat detailed, statement about, the high points and the rationale behind them. Makes it a little bit easier to have a discussion, start off a discussion. If that's not possible, it's not possible. But, Mr. Oneto would have to do one himself because he didn't have anybody help him, I don't think. Did you? Pardon? Scratch yours?
No.
All right.
No, I don't think we should do that.
What I will say, I've been going back to the notes that when we were, here with the Board of Supervisors the other day, and going back to the notes that you had on the screen earlier at the very beginning of the meeting, Keith, and we're talking about keeping Amador City and Sutter Creek together, trying the best we can with Comanche, but the other note that I had written on here twice is least amount of disruption. And I know it's difficult, but I know it was said several times, and I think with Brian's map, I know Ione is the problem child. We know that. We know that. Sorry, but we're growing. But I think as far as we go back to least amount of disruption, I do like Brian's map.
Yeah, on that basis, I think also this one ought to be included.
Yeah, and as far as the least amount of disruption goes, I agree with that, and I think the disruption in Pine Grove should be addressed. I mean, Ione is pretty easy to keep whole as far as the city limits go and the area around it.
But we're being tasked to keep other parts whole with it that are really disparate. I mean, geographically. I mean, it's just historically they've been in the same district. Is really what the disruption they're trying to prevent is the historic containment.
Rather than the disruption of having 3 different supervisors.
Right.
Would it be
And
possible?
Mr. Chairman, actually, could I request that, Rosalind bring up, my November 1st map as an experiment to see if it was the one that you found? Sure. 'Cause I don't know which one you found, but It would
Killing
be,
him.
it might be instructive if we could figure it out. No, no, it wouldn't,
Wouldn't have been
it wouldn't
that
be
one.
that one.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have been that one.
Now, that one passes the test for compact.
It is interesting what connotates disruption. I think what the board is asking for is the political environment less disrupted rather than the communities of interest being disrupted. And I think that's the big difference. I mean, well, it's a historical. Yeah, I'm willing to have arguments against what I'm saying. I'm not, you know, I'm just, well, you've heard those opinions, so.
Yes, he's the only one that doesn't have a piece of Pine Grove.
Yeah, in the
Parts of
Clinton
it.
area.
There's the
Again, I would argue that the Clinton area and our overlap and Pine Grove's overlap with District 1 is the least onerous one, because a lot of those people have Jackson zip codes or PO boxes and that kind of stuff. It is the place in Pine Grove that I've had the least impact. Jan, would you agree with me on that? Yeah. So that's the least impactive one. The distinction between District 5 and District 3 and District 4, that overlap is the biggest one because it impacts the most number of people. Like if you look at if you split Pine Acres, you're splitting a community, it's a 1,300 people. And if you split into the section like where the previous map was showing into District 5, that's thousands of people that consider themselves part of one community. So something I did when I was doing the COI impacts, I was actually calculating how many people were affected. My last map, with Sutter Creek in with Plymouth, impacted 400 people. The COIs impacted 400 people. The COIs that were split had 400 people impacted by them. And all of these maps have thousands of people in COIs that are impacted by them. And that's the difference. We never quantified. We've never actually gone and added up the number of people, because that's actually what we're talking about, the number of people who live in these districts. You know, it's not the land that gets the vote.
Yeah, and in the law that we're trying to work with here, that's the number one priority, is minimizing the impacts on people.
Yeah. And that's the numbers I've been aiming at. And I haven't been able to compare, because I've gone through some other maps and added it up, and the numbers get very high very fast. I went through and put the numbers on all the COIs at one point. I think at that point I've tossed that paper out. But and so you can actually see each community what the impact is when you draw a line through it, and you can actually add up how many people are on one side and how many people on the other side. It's a lot of work, but I think it's the real number that we're looking at.
But you're talking about if I understand what you're saying, you're talking about the COIs that are split and how many people are impacted that way.
Yes.
I think I took it that the supervisors were saying the number of voters who were impacted in terms of whether they changed from one district to another district.
That's right.
Was to be kept to a minimum.
Right, but we already know.
That's a different kind of split than you're talking about.
Right, but we already know that Ione has 2,000 many people, the District 2 has 2,000 too many people in it. So that's already 2,000 people who are shifting districts.
Correct.
Right, so that's a hard metric to go, because you don't have you're not going from a baseline. So you're talking about a minimum of thousands of people changing districts because of that. Whereas if you're like trying to pick people on a map and saying, well, since they're being switched from District 1 to District 4, that's an impact on them. I don't honestly see that as that's a political impact. That's not a cultural impact.
Exactly.
They'll get to vote for another person in there, somebody else will get to run. So it's different than having their community split in half.
Exactly.
And that's what I understood from the very beginning. That's what the new California law was telling us to do, is not split communities of interest. Just because they get shifted to another, like Sutter Creek and Amador City would be kept together. They would just be not in District 4. I'm not harping on that. I'm saying that's the example. of what we're talking about. And that them as a community, everybody agreed those two communities shouldn't be separated. They should be in the same district. But it was step one further in that it was stated that not only do they need to be in the same district, they need to be in District 4, which when you do that, splits the hell out of Pine Grove, so Pine Grove doesn't have the same, it doesn't get the same respect because it's okay to split it, but it's not okay to split Sutter Creek from Amador City.
It's an example of Pine Grove's lack of representation in that they're split up now and will remain to be split up because none of the supervisors will accept any map that doesn't do that.
Well, so we're looking at maps, we've selected some here. So shall we also add the map that they didn't accept last time and sew it back in and make the presentation again?
I'm not gonna do that.
Okay. I mean, I'm willing to do that. I think you're right, but
Honestly,
your point's well taken. I think
I've
most
had
of
my
us agree.
head handed to me on a platter too many times at this point. I'm just making noise because I'm heading on my way out. So.
You know what?
Well-
Actually, I'm going to stand up for Andy here because I believe that that is actually very extremely important. And I think that's the whole reason that we're here. And I think that whether the supervisors like it or not, we're not here to help make sure that they get reelected. We're here to make sure that the community's interests are looked after. And I understand that that's not always in their best interest. And I think it's a good idea to, help make sure that there's the least amount of disruption, but not necessarily for the supervisors, but actually for the people, So I think looking at that map again is worth the second look. And maybe there's something that the committee can look at together to decide that something can stay or go to help make it a better map and make it more likely to be accepted because it will appease more people.
Well, I was under the understanding that appeasing more people wasn't the task before us. I thought it was creating a good map based on data. But even at the supervisor meeting, there were people saying that we shouldn't be using data to be creating these maps in the first place. So
Right.
I don't know where to go with that in this county. Ann has something to say.
After Jan, we do have a
Jan,
comment via Zoom.
We have a speaker at the podium.
And we have a comment via Zoom when Ms. Houghton is finished.
Thank you.
Okay, in case that anybody didn't really understand what Andy was saying. I would first like to address a comment that was made by Mr. Garibaldi, that because Pine Grove is used to being split up, any crumb thrown to them should be a good bone to accept. That is really a rampant, you're not the only one that has that feeling, and it's so wrong. It's like you've been beat up for 20 years, you should be used to being beat up. So that is really something we've got to get out of everybody's mindset. The other thing is, because of the population differences, we know every county boundary has to change. Every supervisor boundary has to change. And every supervisor and every map maker should be willing to make a concession for their district. And it seems the only way people are willing to make a concession is to split up Pine Grove. And it doesn't have to be split up. The only concession seems to be, let's split up Pine Grove. And it's not, let's split more 5 off, 3 off, 1 off. It's don't split this district, this community of interest in this district because they won't like it. Too bad. We don't like where we are. We want to change that. But if you're going to be in a new district, you'll get used to it. You won't be split up, but you'll be in a new district. Pine Grove is split up, and we want to be in one district. If you want to put us all the way down in District 2, fine. We will be one district, one community of interest that isn't split up. That's my soapbox, and I'm leaving it.
I don't understand, Jan. Sorry.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take Ms. Peters when you're ready. Thank you for waiting.
Thanks for taking my comments. This puts me in a little bit of an awkward situation here, because I am an incumbent and I obviously have a stake here. But I want the committee to understand completely that whatever the committee provides as recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and whatever the Board of Supervisors does, you know, I'll take those cards as they're handed to me. That's what it is. I grew up in Pine Grove, so I certainly understand the Pine Grove issue. I grew up on Bowman Road, which is actually represented by District 5, which was always seemed very odd to me that we were in Plymouth, even though I was on Ridge Road. I represent Sutter Creek, and I'm the city planner for Jackson. So I do have a pretty good understanding of where the interests are and where the lines kind of go. And I commend this committee for all the hard work that they've put into this process, because I sat down at the computer with Ruslan and Chairman Sweet, and it was much more difficult than I anticipated it was going to be. Certainly a hard task that you have in front of you. My concern is that it keeps going back to these COIs, and my bad for not getting involved a little bit earlier, but to me, I think there's some issues with some of these COIs. Pine Grove is a giant COI. It's really big. And some portions of it, I question whether it's reasonable to keep them in that COI. And so when it's based on the quote, based on data, the outcome is only as good as the assumption is. And if the assumptions are not quite accurate, then your outcome isn't going to be accurate either. So, I mean, it's too late in the game to go back and look at some of these COIs, but when I look at Sutter Creek's COI, it's basically the city limits, and Sutter Creek's SOI or COI doesn't end there. And there's portions of Sutter Creek that, people identify themselves as being in Sutter Creek, and to lump us in with District 5, we're essentially losing our identity. So I fully understand the plight of Pine Grove, but I also think that there's some equal damage if you lump 3 cities into one district as well. That's the breeding ground for where your supervisors are coming from, is from city council members and water agency directors. And if you're lumping 3 into one, that I think you're really cutting yourself off from getting some experienced people into the Board of Supervisors. So that's another option to consider. Again, I understand that it can't be based on incumbents, and I believe that it shouldn't be. And if I'm redistrict out, I'm redistrict out. I'll just figure out something else to do. But I think that, getting back to my original point, that the assumptions going in need to be maybe not taken quite as black and white as they're being taken. So those are my comments for what they're worth. Thank you.
Ms. Peters? Okay, committee? Tom, you haven't said much tonight.
Yeah, what time is it?
Yeah, really.
I think we are at the end of our rope, at least as far as being able to address the next public hearing for next week. I think we need to condense the balance of this meeting into, she was choosing between 3 and 5 of these maps. I was just about to propose that before you woke me up. We need to make some decisions, else it just goes on forever. So that's all I'm gonna say. I think we've all put them up for a vote, and let's see where they fall. That's what we're here for.
All right, Ruslan, would you, what's maps up there now?
This is just the 2020, blocks. Yeah. It's a-
Oh, existing boundaries. Oh, okay. The Tom's suggestion is we've talked about 5 maps. We want to bring it down, want to submit all 5. We want to get down to 3. What do we want to do?
I don't see a problem with 5.
It's 1.
Seems to me we've had,
Do we have any other maps? Anybody else have a map on, that they've worked on that they want us to look at tonight that we haven't already done so? Which one?
I don't know, the one you found. Dang it.
Dawn.
You brought it up. Find it.
Well, bring, okay, Don, go through that list slowly.
This is,
One and-
it's sorted in alphabetical order, and there's 2 dawns. There's a dawn November 1, a dawn November 15.
And it's not either of them.
The dawn good one is X'd out. So then there's, under the X'd out dawns, there's,
Oh, yeah, they've all
yeah,
been.
1015, 1015, 1020, dawn good one 3, dawn good one,
Yeah.
and dawn good one 2.
Okay, well.
Okay.
ignore me then. Oh, I've been doing this.
All right.
You don't remember.
So other than Don's request to find the mystery one, are there any others? Pat, do you have?
Don, let me ask you a question. Do you think any of those meet the classic configuration?
I think one other one.
Requirement?
But I'm not sure.
Well,
which
let's
one.
look at that one.
Well, we don't need to
Find
go
it.
through everything I've done over the last.
Oh,
And they've already been X'd out as being unacceptable because they were found unacceptable. So,
okay. Then I'm gonna assume that they don't meet the classic configuration that the board asked us to look at.
That one.
All right.
That one.
You can look at the
Can
little
scroll
one.
through them real quick.
The thumbnail.
That one might, no,
That's the one that
won't work.
curves.
That won't work.
Okay. Nope. Nope.
That one.
That one might.
It's too big, you can tell. District 2.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, it splits Ione, but
Yeah, right, that's the one I was gonna work on.
Heard that before.
Yeah, right, and it also, I don't think it includes Amador City, but it comes close.
Yeah,
You do it, Russ.
I just fit in the rest of Ione, and it's like
And it-
11,000.
yeah. Anyhow, I own.
The reason this works is because Ione is,
Not likely to fly.
But that's the closest one you've got to a classic.
Yeah, apparently so.
Well, he learned early on the classic map actually didn't work very well, so.
I gave up on it.
That's why I was working on the one I was, because the classic one, you see everywhere, every time you go through the map, where the problems are. And that's why I came up with the same solution Don did. We came up with it independently. And then we worked together on some of them, but, yeah.
Which one was that we just looked at? Which Don? Which of the many? This prolific creator of maps that I have next to me.
it was dawn 10/15/2021. Chairman
I
Keith?
believe that one evolved from me starting from the existing, because supervisorial district lines and trying to work with them into something that was usable, and I just gave up.
Chairman Keith, I had a quick question. So there's an AKK and an AKK 2R. We didn't look at the 2R.
When was it modified? Oh, the 16th.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
that-
what. we
that's
did
today.
there.
It's today, what's today?
And I can compare the two.
Oh, I think this is one you and I worked on after Katya signed off.
Yeah, we made some additional, adjustments, after Katya had left, and
Yeah.
it's very similar to AKK, but the District 2 boundary changed a little bit, and then we had to make a few other adjustments.
Run the numbers on that one, would you, Ruslan?
I'll compare it to AKK.
Yeah, thank you.
So hashed areas are the differences between the two AKKs.
Which one do you want, Ann?
I can't remember if these numbers came out a little bit, closer balanced than the first one. Okay, let's go with the one that has the best numbers.
So the regular AKK was, I believe, 9.55. This one was 9.87.
Flip a coin.
Stick with what we have, AKK?
Sorry, Andy Byrne again. That's the same thing that happens is, in order to, with the previous style of maps that Don and I were working with, we were getting numbers that were not disruptive to communities of interest, and they were all within 1 or 2%. In order to keep this map even remotely close, you're like always pushing at the very boundaries of your numbers, which tells me that those numbers are, I mean, it's just not the right way to approach it. And I know I lost already, but but that's the argument on it. It's you're pushing all these boundaries just to come up with something like that. And I just don't buy that as a method of governing.
We're pushing the boundaries to try to retain as much as possible within a community of interest.
Yeah, I understand that, but if you, the mere fact that there's these few constraints that can't be changed that we're working around.
Right, it's because our population isn't equally distributed.
That's right. That's right.
Mr. Chairman, would it make sense to ask everybody on the committee to pick their top 5 choices and run the numbers and see where we're at?
Well, we've only really looked at 5 maps tonight, and a couple of them tangentially, like this one here.
Got nothing.
I mean, I'm all for putting in one of the maps that was rejected just to show the difference in the numbers. If you show that one is 1% off and these are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% off.
Or as a placeholder.
Yeah, well, and I don't even know that mine are accurate, because at that point I started tweaking things because I saw the writing on the wall. The earlier ones were much cleaner. And I don't even know where to look for those at this point. I mean, it's in the pile somewhere, but.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, perhaps, for instance, the map, that we looked at from November 15th. If it would be acceptable, we could include that as a placeholder, because that map certainly could be brought into, the deviation requirement at 10% pretty easily.
Gonna bring that one back up, Russell? This is the one you haven't finished.
Yes. Actually, when I walked away from the desk yesterday, it was within 10%. So I believe it could be made to be within 10% again.
Yeah, and we've had that problem where you close your map, somebody else opens it and something gets changed and it's not your map anymore, yeah. So it would take some different work. You do have that
I would
experience.
not have left the office if it was not acceptable already.
Right.
And Patty, you had a map like that too, didn't you? Yeah, and it's frustrating, but that's, yeah, I've definitely had that.
Can you get that map redone? By tomorrow noon?
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, but you could put her other one in and
Yeah, perhaps
this
as
would
a
be the
placeholder.
updated one that you could drop in at the meeting.
Yeah, right.
There wouldn't be anything wrong with that, I don't think. That's
I've already
what
got
Greg
that
was-
one included.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. So you could update it and then show your update at the meeting. That seems reasonable.
Right. So we'll put in, FXB2A2. Is that the one you said, Andy, was we were?
Oh. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And, the one that says Forrester Pat, I believe. The one that says Brian Final. The one that says, new SBK 11. And the one that
Classic.
says,
SBK Classic.
Yes,
pardon?
SBA Classic.
SBA Classic. And the one that says AKK. And the one that says Don 1115.
I'm good with all those.
And everybody is eligible to, work on clean theirs up, to present a cleaner map next Tuesday that would have considerable resemblance to the one that we're gonna submit in the packet. That agreeable?
Yes.
And,
So if somebody were to radically change it, are you saying it wouldn't be looked at?
Yes.
well, if someone was to come up with these are the ones we're gonna put in the packet, and these are the ones we'll discuss. If the board wishes to accept during the public hearing another map from someone, either a committee member or community member, that would be up to them because they're running the public hearing. But we've said all along that, people can submit a map anytime during the public hearing, so I don't think Mr. Onetto would disagree with me there. He can't agree with me either, so, so we're in limbo there. But, I would push as the chairman of this committee during the public hearing that if someone came up with a new map, that we'd, consider it to look at. Remembering that, this is a public hearing on the next coming Tuesday. They may throw it back to this committee to refine, or they may, wish to refine it themselves. I'm not sure. So we may have to have one more meeting before their next public hearing, which is on the 7th. I believe that's correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So, we don't have a meeting scheduled, any more meetings of ours scheduled between now and the 7th.
That's correct.
Do we want to look at our calendars and see if it gets thrown back to us after this next public hearing? Date there we go, quick. So that'd be the 23rd. It'd be between the 23rd and the 7th. So,
For me.
So the Board of Supervisors.
it'll be a public hearing for the committee's recommendations or the committee's submissions, yeah, that's this. And then they'll have another one on the 7th. And another one on the 14th, if necessary. That'd be a special public hearing But,
The special public hearing, or the public hearing is set for a special meeting on December 7th. And then we have our regular meeting on December 14th.
oh, that's it, that's okay, right. So, what's the Wednesday, the 1st? What's in here on Wednesday, the 1st? Nothing, right?
Nothing as of yet. I don't know if anything's pending.
Wouldn't the 24th make more sense, because it would be right after the meeting, there'd be feedback, and then there'd be actually time to actually deal with maps.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Thanksgiving
sense.
Eve, you're right, that would be a tall bridge.
The 24th?
It's a short week. I'm not sure what staffing is available.
Wonderful, thanks.
Yeah.
No, let's go for the 1st.
We could possibly do it on Tuesday, the day of the public hearing, just later in the day.
But we want to be able to, respond for the public hearing, not after the public hearing.
No, after the public hearing, because you're gonna get feedback again, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I like that, Katya. It makes a long ass day, but
Tuesday.
You are correct.
pardon me, yeah. Sorry, I was using special language to really tell you how
It's a very
how it works.
long day,
Yeah.
yes.
Heather, is there?
I did that last week. I had a
on
planning
that
commission after the Board of Supervisors meeting. That's part of the reason I'm quitting, yeah.
Tuesday, the 23rd,
Heather, is
after the
there
meeting. That'd
any
be in the
availability
afternoon.
on that day?
Who can't make that? One alternate, one. Tuesday, the 23rd.
I think something we should keep in mind is that we may receive feedback at the public hearing and meet on it, but there won't be any days that will be available for us to modify or improve any maps for 5 days thereafter.
Yeah, that's the point.
So how about the 1st? December 1st? That's a Wednesday, same time, same station.
But we'll be in the same position we're
Yeah.
in,
Couldn't get it into the packet for the 7th.
of being in a compressed schedule to getting revised work out to the board. But I think we'll be in better shape that way.
They don't have, we're working on the 1st, we have to get it to them, they've gotta have it by.
What about the 29th or the 30th?
Well, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
But I'm trying to get
We'll
away
be able
from.
to do it again. Well, okay.
What's in here on the 29th? Can you bring this calendar back up?
I don't see anything for the 29th.
That's a couple extra days.
Yep.
Tentatively, the 29th, Heather will check in the morning and,
And Rosalind, all vacations are
otherwise
canceled.
the fallback's the 1st.
Mine aren't. So would that be the last meeting, or would you plan on meeting after that?
I hope so. Yeah.
We were hoping last week was.
I am available during the day.
Yeah.
Well, I actually
And-
work.
And it's a tentative meeting, we may not have to do it, it depends on what happens on the 20th,
That's true.
but the next one comes up. Okay.
I've
Free
given up
during the day.
so many days to do mapping that giving up, it's expensive for me to give up my days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could just loop myself, yeah.
Or Zoom in.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't change it. Zooming in doesn't change it. I work during the day, yeah. I mean, I work for myself, but I can take the time off. But that means the last 2 weeks, I've been working till 10 o'clock at night on all the days that I've gone to map. So I can't, my work doesn't go away just because I don't do it, during the day.
Same time, 6 o'clock. On the 29th, and we'll confirm that. We have 6 maps going forward. You've got those identified?
Dawn 1115, SBK Classic, Brian Final, Fax BA2, Forster Patty, and AKK.
Okay, thank you. Okay, review any maps done by members. We've done that. Do we have a map? No, we do not. If not, can we get one by the 23rd? Well, we're submitting these and we'll see what happens. Anything else for the good of the order here? Andy?
I got nothing.
Bruce?
How refreshing. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nope. Past my bedtime.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Zoomers, for attending. This meeting is adjourned.